Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Today I have Australia's #1 residential mortgage broker. She's a mother, she's a mentor, she's a mortgage broker, she's a business owner. Katie Thomas from Focus Finance. Welcome to the Everything Property Podcast. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for making the trip down from Newcastle. Look, I think what's really cool, and for people that don't know at home, you recently wrote $496 million of loans, which was #1 on the list. Second, our viewers and our audience will know was Michael Shah, who's been on the podcast before, but someone that comes in #1. I want to talk to, and I want to know a little bit more about your story. I saw you come up on those lists. I always watch them, and then digging into Katie Thomas, I couldn't find too much. You know, you're not huge on socials. You're not out there sort of telling everyone you're #1.
No.
So I want to dig into a little bit about like who you are, sort of the 15 years plus that you spent in like banking world before starting Focus. And I guess I want to know a little bit more about you. Maybe if you can let us know what that sort of 15 years was like for you. And then I always like to learn, you know, what is that decision, or what is that moment where you go, you know what, it's time to step away, it's time to do my own stuff. So for a lot of people out there that don't know who's Katie Thomas, and tell me about those sort of first 15 odd plus years working for the banks.
So I did. I started in the bank when I was 18. So I initially either wanted to do property or finance. I had started my licensing to be a real estate agent at 18.
Oh, there you go.
And happened to get a job in the bank at the same time, which just made that decision for me. And then I ended up buying property anyway. So I kind of just made it best of both worlds, I suppose. But in the bank, I knew lending was always what I wanted to do. So as soon as I got in there, I think I was just an absolute pest until they let me be a lender and I wouldn't leave them alone. And really just started doing that. But I did that within the first sort of 2 years. But because I'd done that fairly quickly, I was really interested in the people within the business as well, and coaching and mentoring them. So I then moved within year 3 into a bank manager role. So I then was a bank manager, but I started lending in the GFC.
It's great timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So GFC, and then bank manager for everybody that knows single industry towns. Bank manager in Singleton in the Hunter Valley, right at the point that there was a mining downturn. So I stayed up there, and we had businesses obviously really struggling through that period. They were having a really tough time. And really just throughout that, I then really noticed they needed a lot of support. So moved into commercial portfolios and managed their commercial portfolios all through the Hunter Valley. And then did that for a couple of years, managed them through the mining downturn, which was a really fun time doing that. And stayed in lending really all throughout it, all through the branch network for 13 years.
And you said that you bought your first property early?
18, yeah.
What was the story, or what was the reasoning behind that? Was that a parents push you, or? No, I always just really had probably a bit more of a growth mindset, I suppose. Everything I was doing had a reason to be doing it, or something I wanted to build or create, or kind of the bucket list before family as well. Like, I have to have a career, and I have to have a house, and, you know, whatever your bucket list is that you think is important in 18. And so I just started ticking off my list pretty quickly, I guess. And property, I always loved property anyway. So really just started that, bought another, and I've just really continued that journey as well with
I guess, breaks in there with maternity leave and whatever else.
What were the numbers on the first property though? If you're 18 and you're buying up in
210.
Single 10 women.
Yes, I did. Yeah, 210,000.
Still got that now?
No.
Okay.
We did a massive renovation on that property at the time, and probably held that for 5 years maybe. And then sold it for 600 in 5 years, but just good timing for that was luck. That was a bit of a renovation, good market timing, but there was no strategy in that. Let me tell you, at 18, more strategy now on property, but not then.
And then your time at the bank, those other 13 years, what are some of your key takeaways, lessons, learning?
I think the banks teach a lot, to be honest. There is an enormous amount of time and energy that they spend on building out resilience and capability, and they make sure that you're really utilizing your full potential through there. The scorecard metrics and how they do that really kind of drive that culture. So you either grow into that and lean into it, or you don't. But outside of the banking industry, mortgage broking doesn't really have those metrics in the same way. Business owners get a P&L, but it's not quite the same as those very granular scorecards within banking. But that really does set up stacking habits on how you operate, I think.
So why lean out then if the bank is sort of giving you this, I suppose, structured formula? What is their transition between working for the bank, structure, and then you going, you know what, let me go to this unknown of mortgage broking, that side? What's the transition and how does that happen?
One bank, one policy, one val. So if you go through the process and you really care about what you're doing in your client base, and at that point, you've built out relationships, you care about the relationships you hold and the people you're helping, sitting there and potentially knowing there is an option elsewhere and you're limited to one is difficult to feel that you have acted in that person's best interest, I think.
So what was that like in terms of setting up a brokerage, putting your name out there, getting the business started and sorted, and just learning that stuff from the ropes? Because obviously we look at it now, 496 million. Yeah. I was talking to obviously your EA, so I can see you've got people and structures and systems in place. But now. Back then, like, what were those first early years like?
The
focus.
Operational support, to be totally honest, I've really only had in there for 3 months. So anyone in operations within the business has only started this financial year. Prior to that, we haven't had anybody in operations at all.
Wow.
So PJEA that you're talking to, he's on week 2.
Wow.
I've thrown him in the deep end.
Yeah.
So we, prior to that, really didn't have anybody operationally. I was all hats for a while. I think, which for me was brilliant, because you know how to do absolutely everything in that business. You are feeling the same pain points as your team, plus the business pain points. I would not have done that any other way. It gives me also a very genuine appreciation for those roles now, because I know exactly what they're doing, and I really appreciate what that is. The level of gratitude to those people is enormous, because I know intrinsically what they're doing and can help them with it.
How do you balance that and being a mum, raising kids?
Yeah.
Because business is not like a 50% effort.
No.
And neither is probably being a mum. I can't speak from experience. I'm not one. But I mean, if you've got 3 kids and you've got a very successful mortgage broking business, how did you juggle, or what are some of those takeaways? Because no doubt there's going to be plenty of families, maybe mums as well, listening or want to be mums.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you handle? How did you navigate?
Yeah, well, first child I had while I was still at Westpac. went on maternity leave. At the time, I felt like it was really good to have them close together. I thought that was a really brilliant idea. So first month I came back from maternity leave, I was pregnant again. So then rather quickly went back off on maternity leave the second time. Third time coming back in, I now have a 6-month-old and a 15-month-old and as well. So they're both very young. I had 2 under 2. And the level of FTE restriction within the banking system at that time meant...
Sorry, what's FTE?
Full-time equivalent, the banking term.
Yeah.
They constantly put restrictions on support. So they had recruitment freezes. So I was coming in straight off mat leave, but I was doing fairly big numbers at that point in time. My second child is under 1. I was writing considerable numbers at that stage within the bank. I had said, we need some support here. Like I'm going to burn out over here. There needs to be some support to write these sort of numbers. Recruitment freeze. So not a possibility at that time. I've got 2 under 2 and that was really a good moment for me to go, you know what, coupled with everything I already felt about acting in the client's best interest at that stage, potentially different pathway here for me. Then left and...
What's the timing of starting this? What year are we in?
Yeah, end of 2019.
Okay, so COVID.
Year 1.
You're picking really good time. You're challenging yourself.
Absolutely. Year 1, COVID hit, which was bananas. End of that year, pregnant. So I then had our third baby just after I had started the business in the middle of COVID. So, yeah.
Plenty of work to do. How do you establish yourself and, mortgage broking, building up leads, building up, team volume again, kind of starting from scratch?
Yeah.
Especially in COVID, a lot of people potentially a bit hesitant to transact at that time.
Oh,
what are you
initially
doing?
We
sending the
thought
kids
that
out?
Was the case.
Yeah.
Well, all kids are at home. Because no daycare.
Put them on the letterbox shops.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't walk, they're newborn.
Get them to crawl.
Lazy. So all kids are at home because daycare, can't go to daycare. My husband supervises landscape. So his life continued as normal because he was a part of the people that were allowed to just continue to go out and work.
Yeah.
So 3 kids at home, business, newborn. But initially, I think the whole industry, when COVID hit, went, this could go not amazingly. We might dry up here. And obviously then rate cuts happened and it fired up. Everyone was absolutely flat stick at that point. So we were hitting insane numbers through that period.
What are we talking there in terms of a broking?
Leads-wise was insane, but what we had to navigate was the changing lending policies that were occurring because of the industries. So gyms, you come in with a gym pay slip and go, do you have a job next week? Because no, that gym's empty. So it was the numbers was still very, very good, but I think your conversion through that was a little bit trickier. The grants that come in at that time, also what happened was the super, you could now withdraw from super, so they had to work out Gen Savings for first home buyers. Is it Gen Savings or is it a super withdrawal? There was a lot through that period that happened, but we were very, very, very busy through it. It was, I think every broker, just about to be honest, would say the same thing, that the industry really did blow up because of the rate cuts. Of course it did. Rate cuts drive consumer confidence, cheap money. Everyone wanted to buy. So it did the absolute opposite of that, and all the relationships I already held pre-broker, because I had them as a banker, coming out, we kind of all had that conversation at that time, kind of going, are we okay through this bit? Like, how's this going to look? And we, real estate agents and accountants, all of us going, I don't know, this could go either way.
Literally.
And
A lot of people saying 30-40% drops.
Days. But that sling of people through that period, we all a year later went, whoa, that was insane. We did insane numbers through there. So that happened, and then you've got to restabilize business back, in offices, business is normal again. So you just go through all different transition periods, I think, of business and life.
And what's been your key, I suppose, findings or struggles, maybe experiences as well with building out a team? Because you obviously went from maybe starting out in those early days to 1, 2. I think you're up to 28, 29 in the team now.
Yeah.
What's been your learning on the fly with building a team of that size now?
Yeah, so many.
Yeah.
So much learning in that. You're definitely building the plane while you're flying it. There is, I think the one thing, especially for Focus, is culture is everything. If we didn't nail the hiring, I think you've got to be really comfortable with helping everybody within the business and care so much about every person that you've brought in. And sometimes we're not the right fit for those people, and trying to keep people within the business for any particular reason, that's not helping them at all. So making sure that you spend longer hiring than firing, definitely. Yeah. But if you've made the wrong call, it's not working out, you need to have those conversations too, in an absolutely genuine care perspective. You need to care that much about them as a human being to go, I can see that you are going to be so great doing whatever, and learning through that. And it helped me. I had quite a bit of management experience in the bank and, learned.
True branch manager. And, yep.
Yeah. So I had a fair bit of management over that side anyway, luckily. So I got to learn a bit of that on someone else's payroll. So that was nice. But it's learning that. And then as you scale, you've built a really tight-knit team, great culture. It's protecting that through scale is really, really important, and building infrastructure and frameworks and architecting the business in a way that protects it and facilitates everybody being at their highest and best use, and monitoring burnout and making sure that you're considering all people at all times.
What would be your definition of good culture for anyone wanting to build a team? Like, what does that look like from Katie Thomas's point of view?
From my perspective in my business, and this may not be the same everywhere.
What do you want people to feel, or what is it? What is your sort
I want them to be exactly who they are as human beings. I do not want the corporate PC version of what that needs to look like in any other setting. You all have your own individual amazing personalities, and I want to see all of those things. It is so lovely to walk into that team, the banter and the fun and the pranks and all of the things between the team, because they are just allowed to be exactly who they are. They do not need to be chained to their desk from 9 to 5, go to the beach on Friday afternoon. It doesn't need to be, and I think that comes from a bit of banking, to be honest, because to your point earlier, there is a lot of structure in what that looks like.
Yep.
I would say it can cause a higher burnout rate, and you absolutely need to be your banking version of your personality, and you then do the rest of it outside business hours. So I really didn't want that. I wanted, everybody talks about a work-life balance, and, fair point, except we're at work more. So how about we just create an environment where you get to be your whole personality the whole way through your life instead? And to me, that's much better culture. People can then have the power to, you're empowering them to contribute to the business. It's their business, it's their reputation, it's their families this impacts. I wanted them to feel a huge part of what we're doing and advocate for it and champion that in their own right with their own personalities. And it means that the feedback they provide and, creating that dialogue between me and them goes, what aren't we nailing here? How do we? And they are so open with that. They will absolutely go, all of these things, brilliant, let's fix that.
Yeah, okay.
And that to me is probably what my version of good culture. The fact that I can have my team come and tell me anything about anything and they feel comfortable doing it, and our day-to-day doesn't need to be difficult in any way at all. If we're having, just everybody can have a bit of a flat day. Yeah. Going to work is the thing that boosts the day. Spending time with each other, they lift each other up so much. If I'm having a flat day, I want to be sitting next to the team all day because I just know we're going to have a brilliant day and I'll walk out feeling amazing. There's different cultures where I would have said, you don't want to go that day. Like, it's
I know the feel.
Yeah. So for me, that's, the essence of it is creating somewhere you want to genuinely turn up to every day.
Would you change anything if you had to go back? You make any big mistakes?
Sure, of course you do. Hire people smarter than you earlier. Definitely. And hire for your flaws. And if you are not self-aware enough to really reflect on your own flaws, and there's things, brokers, I would say largely in particular, are brilliant at being brokers and great with the client, know how to be a broker, generally not brilliant at processing so much a deal. It's, they're on to the next shiny thing. Yeah. That's typical industry-wide. Hire for your flaws. Bring someone in that does do that side of it very well and as early as possible. Then as that business scales, there are things in the business that are not going to set your world on fire. You're not going to want to do a lot of the things that businesses require that needs to be there to have a great structured business, from, a recruitment process, policies, procedures, all the things that businesses need to have. Mm-hmm. Brokers, want to be writing deals. They want to be out there, having conversations. Hire people that love that. And they're there. They absolutely love those things and they're better at it. They're going to always be better at it than you are because they enjoy doing it. So let them do that. So hire them.
How do you know when is the time to hire when you're building your team? Because you were saying previous to this financial year, you were running, before this year, you're saying you guys were running quite lean on the number of brokers in the business.
Yeah.
So how do you balance I guess, and this is for anyone that owns a business, is in any type of business, is how do you balance the shift of putting on more people and having more costs and then that costing you more versus the revenue that they could bring in? You're not reading a textbook about this.
Yeah.
But you've obviously had to go about it. So how have you went to figure that out?
Yeah. So I, again, think I probably do this fractionally different in terms of business modelling because...
Well, it's working, so...
Yes, yeah, definitely. But I wouldn't say it's the easier road because there is such a lag in brokers. So bring in a broker day one. Now, let's say they're writing decent volume day one, so they need support day one. There's obviously then a lag because of how we're remunerated. Now, if you throw in pre-approvals over the top of that, so they might be writing, whatever the number is, but let's say a box pre-approvals, that might be executed 8 weeks later. Then you've got settlement timeframes after that. Then you've got the lag on commissions. So you've got a massive lag. And if you bring in a lean broker but heavy support so they can write volume, there's a lag. So you've got to be prepared for your writing a decent level of volume, but there's still a lag through that, to your point on cash flow. So a lot of models, arguably easier from the outset, is the com-only broker model. They initially have no support till they kind of hit X level and they write their deals end to end.
Okay.
That's, has been more
standard?
I don't know if it's standard, but it's pretty common.
What a lot of people do, yeah. Okay.
It is, I felt coming out of banking that there is some amazing people out there that are not in a financial position that they could go from their paid salaries to com-only broker. They simply couldn't make that transition. So the only way really to facilitate that was to give them a salary straight out the gate that made sure that they could do that transition and then come through that way. That means, obviously, from business perspective, you're on the hook from the outset. Hope you made the right call, and all the rest of it comes through. True. It catches itself up, but you've got to be prepared for what that looks like. I also wanted to have highly individual brokers that are successful. So I wanted highly successful brokers, not 10 brokers writing an average of 40, 50 million. I really wanted to go, they all write over 100 million, and they all do now.
Yep.
So
shout out who are the brokers that are doing well under you?
All of them, obviously.
Yeah, okay.
No. So, last year, Ash, who was number 31 on the same list, so she cracked 100. So proud of her. So I actually knew Ash. I've known Ash for about 13 years as well. So we celebrated her 21st birthday at the bank together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So
she'll tell you she's only a couple of years older than that, but I've known her for more than a decade. But yes, so she started back with me only mid last year. So in her first year with me, now she cracked 100. So she did brilliantly. Maddie, first year as a broker, same financial year, and she would have nearly hit that top 100 list too. She was about 2 mil shy. I know. But they are both doing well. And so now Chloe is also a broker. She was on maternity leave last year. So she's coming through. She's a broker now as well. They're all on track to do very similar numbers. So they'll have a really big financial year as well.
It's cool to see that because it's the same with real estate. Is almost there's real estate agents and brokers too, where it's one broker does all the work funneled into them. Same with real estate agencies. Or you get these agents or these brokers that sort of build this successful team around them. And then you have these girls coming out now and then being their own sort of people. How do you well, I suppose my question around this is are you worried that they'll go out and start something that they own 100% of? Are you worried that they go out and start a Focus Finance 2.0 or what's your leadership style in terms of growing your team and managing people that are doing those really good numbers?
If you're worrying about that, you're focusing on the wrong thing. You should be focusing on what makes them stay, not why they would leave. You should spend more time making sure that you're doing the right thing by your team. And genuinely, if there is a point in the future, now let's say I chose that development finance was our sole lead intake and that's all I was ever going to do, and then the team goes, that's not really my thing, I would like to go do this elsewhere. Support them in that. That's fine. We're not going to do that. But, there's business changes in there where I think you go, okay, well, we're aligned at this point. That doesn't mean you are forever. That doesn't mean that you're not an amazing broker for whatever reason to limit you to continue that if I've now chosen to do something different. Now, would that occur in that way? Probably not. I would always just facilitate another version for them to do whatever they like. If any of them come to me and said, here's something that I really want to dive into, I just want to go full tilt on first home buyers because that's my passion and I want to do it in the medico space, I would champion that 200% and I would support exactly what they want to do, and we would just fully go full tilt at building that out. So, and there's so much like a family in there. It's so difficult to imagine not working with any of them. I'm not so much worried about them growing from a career perspective and doing other things. I'd be more worried about just not seeing them every day.
Yeah, wow. Okay, well, it's good to see. I mean, it's just interesting to understand what your approach is, because a lot of people have different perspectives and things. So that's why the beauty of a new guest every week is like you get to pick what your brain and your approach is, which is really cool. Was there any mentors or any people that you lent on this journey?
No.
To build, or where do you go for guidance and?
I was left to my own devices for a little while. Dangerous, don't do that. But so again, only this year, I met Jeff Jowett and started chatting with him a bit this year. So I've been dealing with him for sort of a couple of months now. Prior to that, I hadn't. I was probably naively thinking, well, this is kind of just the path, and just led by intuition at that point, rightly or wrongly, that just in a way that I wanted the business to look for the last, especially couple of years. And it was really more around going, how do I want this to work? This is just my life. How do I want this to look from Monday to Friday and every other day? Business owners don't really switch off, I don't think, over the weekend necessarily. Yep. Then literally just created it around exactly those things. I think if you find your purpose and you've made it your passion and then you turn it into profit, you've done a pretty good job at working it out.
Yeah, that's true. Well, look, talk to me. I want to, Katie, dig into now maybe a little bit around who your target audience is, who you're writing loans for. I know our audience, a lot of people that are property professionals, investors, people wanting to either buy that PPOR, saving up their money, or build and scale portfolios. So I want to get, well, first and foremost, I want to see what your thoughts are on, and probably recently as a broker, the biggest bit of broking news in quite a while is Macquarie stopping or calling back and then pausing trust and company learning. So I want to get, what's your sort of position, or what's your thoughts on that from a broking perspective and for investors?
I think that the writing was on the wall there from Macquarie's end. That was a very niche, isolated policy for one lender to take the hit on, and I don't know that had been utilised particularly well, and the risk in that is quite enormous, and the potential fallout of that is very huge. We obviously have a lot of inexperienced people spruiking that policy, and if you do not have safeguards around that, that is extraordinarily risky. Does that mean that there isn't opportunity for investors in that space to build portfolios? Absolutely not. We've been scaling portfolios for years. Before that policy existed, there's always been ways to scale portfolios. You just need a more strategic approach than trying to funnel everything into one bucket. There is so much to consider with scaling a portfolio.
Well, can we dive into some of those ways? Or I'm sure out of the 496 mil worth of loans, there's quite a few successful investors in there.
For sure.
So what are they doing? If we take sort of that trust or company lending, what are some of those strategies, or what are some of those successful people doing to keep building, keep scaling, that gets them past the typical 2 or 3 that a lot of people sort of stop on?
I think it's the sum of all parts, to be honest. There has to be strategy around that portfolio has to be extremely well thought through. And we're talking cash flow strategy, cash flow analysis, yield analysis, growth analysis. There has to be land tax considerations. There has to be state considerations. You have to consider tax considerations in all of that. And if you've left any of those considerations on the table, then the strategy level of those portfolios are open to risk and failure. If that is really well thought through, you have to consider, all right, on this build out, when are we going to go through a debt consolidation period, which now has a profitable portfolio to continue to scale? What is the asset class that does that? Is that residential? Is that commercial? What does that need to look like? What is my vacancy period in these particular areas? There's so many avenues that you need to consider, and then couple that with the appropriate lending to safeguard it. And if you don't do that in a way that hopefully your moral compass aligns with, the due diligence on that needs to be enormous. Because of the amount of social media around some of those policies, a lot of people did believe that they had kind of cracked the code on how to do
money glitch.
the matrix has glitched and we can now have as much as we would like. Now the reality is that we are still in, not peak interest rates, but the rates mean that a lot of properties are negatively geared. So if you don't have a strategy to get them out of being negatively geared, the house of cards are going to fall over. So the due diligence on the broker side needs to be that, one, protect people a little from themselves sometimes, where you go, okay, great. What buffers are we holding over here? How much cash do we have? What is the cash flow analysis of this portfolio? Go, perfect. Next transaction, it needs to look like X, because if the yield isn't there, or we've not considered, different areas have either strata cost, land tax considerations in different states, and then we have, property managers charge different percentages in different states. So you want to consider all of those things and then really tailor it down to going, okay, this is the spec of how that needs to look and how is it going to grow from here? Does it need to be a debt consolidation phase, or does it need to be an equity release? And that's fine, because we're growing in a market that is facilitating growth. Are we in a rising market, or are we at the bottom of a market where we're going to wait for a run? So there is a enormous amount of consideration to safeguard what that looks like. And anybody not doing that, it is not sustainable. It will come undone at some point, and the Macquarie policy, unfortunately, in the wrong hands, has the ability to do exactly that if it can be self-declared.
That's it's true. Is there any other policies that you're liking for investors at the moment, like that people might not know about, or that you are able to utilize as a broker, and that a lot of clients are being able to, I guess, use? Not so much like a Macquarie and Trust, but is there anything else that comes to the top of mind that people can take advantage of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, trust lending still exists. There's still a lot of niche policies around what to do with trusts, regardless of how the ownership structure of the property is held. There are still opportunities of what makes sense, particularly for self-employed people. There is an enormous amount of opportunity there. 90%, no LMI, great opportunity. There's lots of stuff in there, especially for investors to come in with a neat and not an 88 and then capitalize genuinely 90% with no mortgage insurance. And there are always policies and ways. The policies are, to be honest, the facilitator, but the portfolio structure is the thing that makes the difference on scaling. Policies are always there. They've been there forever. I've been scaling portfolios for more than 10 years. Policies come in and out that whole time. and at different points, sophisticated investors, which used to be the buzzword because we all got to a point now we're called a sophisticated investor. And we've all forgotten about that. But
you're right.
Sophisticated investors was the term that all the lenders chose once you were at a point that you had a bit of intelligence about how to scale portfolios. That's not gone.
Yeah.
It just got forgotten about through the period of going, well, this is a really shiny policy. The way to do it is still there. You just need highly experienced brokers that have done it for a long time, that have utilised all of the policies and frameworks and systems and strategies that they've been using for more than 10 years, longer, to do the same style of lending that just got a bit more set and forget with a Macquarie policy.
It's true. What is the hardest... I always say one of the hardest purchases in that investment portfolio is that first one, because people are saving up the cash for it. Sometimes it can take 2-3 years depending on salary and cost of living now. Is there any mistakes or things that people need to avoid on that first one to ensure that a second and third is in the picture? Like what are the mistakes that you're seeing that stop people in their tracks on that first one? Maybe it's before they come to you and they come to you with the mistake. Yep. But what do you see in that first one that's really what's an analogy, I suppose, like a... Roadblock, yeah.
Yep. First home buyers that then want to build into investors. Had we done something differently or thought more strategically about what their home was going to be for their first home, that would have been a very different outcome later for them. And I really love that space for first home buyers for exactly that reason. Yes, absolutely buy your first home, but it's not your forever home. So let's really consider, what can we do with this? Is it a strategic buy? Let's absolutely make it yours for a little while. But if it's not a strategic buy, what are you considering on your resale for this home? Because you're absolutely going to sell it. You definitely are. You're not going to keep this property for the next 30 years, likely. So I think for the first home buyers out there, making sure that purchase, whilst it might hit the mark of what you want it to be as a first home, you've highly considered what's it going to be next for someone else, and then what's it going to do for you. And the investors obviously have a framework of consideration around where they would buy, why they would buy in that area, what's the appeal, is it a 2-bed but easily converted to a 3-bed, what's the yard size, school proximity, all of the things investors consider. Do the same for your first home. And then live in there, you absolutely, if you'd like, and make it your first home. But that will elevate your wealth creation journey after it. Same for investors. It's really no different. If their first purchase as an investor hasn't had that level of strategy on what comes next, same problem. Everybody has that exact same problem. If they've not gone to the depth of understanding what those properties are going to do for the subsequent properties and the structuring of them and tax considerations and structuring around, let's say it's a husband and wife or partners or whatever that looks like, then, you want to consider what's the exit on that. Have we considered future CGT, or have we just considered that it's great net gearing to the highest income earner right now, but then the CGT later doesn't feel as amazing? How much strategy is in there?
Is there a preferred sort of asset type or look and feel for investors? We'll go investors first.
There is at different stages in different climates for different portfolios. That's not a linear answer ever, nor should it be, because markets change, the risk appetites change, consumer confidence changes, yield compression changes. So what that answer is very much based on the individual person's portfolio and the stage that it's at, and then at the age that they are and what they're trying to achieve. Same for first home buyers. Really, the asset type, they're exactly the same. It's really no different, but it's so individual. And if you've not considered, you need their goals. The goals of what they're trying to achieve, first home buyer, refi, owner, occupier, it doesn't matter. We're in the business of lending, but the clients don't want a loan. They want a home. They want wealth creation. They want financial freedom, whatever that is. If you don't understand what their goals are, the property it's just the vehicle to get them to whatever they're trying to achieve. Loans are just the vehicle. It's not really the destination of what they're trying to achieve. If you understand the goals, you can reverse engineer it into a strategy that facilitates it.
I'm trying to pull some answers out of you for that stuff, but I guess it's individual.
It's so individual.
For each.
It's honestly very individual. And
what do the traits of the successful investors look like, though? Is there clues on their portfolios that you're looking at?
Yeah, I would say, but this is more to do with personality type than property type. The successful investors, one, do exactly what I said about hiring earlier and hire smarter people earlier. They will pay for advice. They will get great accountants in there that will give them the structuring advice that they need. They will bring in other professionals that are very good at what they do. They will do all of those things. Then they have the risk appetite and the mindset to hold it, because property portfolios, holding on to property at times isn't super fun. There's, loan paperwork. I know that on both sides of the fence, not fun. So there's a whole process you've got to go through there that you've got to have the mindset and the resilience to be able to weather. So the best investors have a bit more tenacity to get through that. Now, the portfolio on the other side, you could do all of those things and have 20 lemons in your portfolio, and that really wouldn't get you the result. So the asset, obviously, on the other side is super important, but they'll never get there if the investor type doesn't have the ability to have the framework of people around them and then their own tenacity to be able to do it.
So framework, people, and then going out and getting it and chasing it.
Yeah. And ideally, in an ideal world, if you're dealing with brokers that are really skilled in that space, that side of it's fairly easy. But if they aren't, that is extraordinarily risky. And you've got to know a lot. So you've got to really invest in your education around what that looks like for investors.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I was speaking about someone... speaking to someone that wanted to buy a development site. And I said, okay, well, what entity are you buying it in? And they said, I haven't got it set up yet. I'm like, what's the rush? They said, it's going to cost me a few $1,000. I said, what's the issue?
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend that yet. I was like, so what are you going to put on the contract when you're trying to sign it if you don't have an entity sorted?
Yeah.
Or you don't want to pay the $2,000-3,000 to set up like some sort of entity to hold that development.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't want to pay that sort of money, then it's definitely not for you, right?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to know what you're getting yourself into a little bit. And building a framework of people around you that are experiencing similar things to you. A lot of the brokers you've spoken to all have property portfolios. So they know the pain points of that. There's acquisition fatigue. You might have all of the things. All of the things. You've got the deposit, you've got the cash flow, you've got everything and there's still acquisition fatigue in there, because at some point earlier you've potentially gone too hard in particular asset types which stem to your journey anyway. So you need to, from my perspective, understand your client, their home, their lifestyle, their goals. Like they might tell you, I want to achieve financial freedom, and you go, that's lovely, and this is how your family structure looks. How achievable is this style of portfolio for you? Or do we need to consider something different, which means my lending frameworks are different? So the layers of consideration to build that out past your first question, the first couple, which I'm sure was a lending question, except the lending is honestly the least of it.
Yeah, okay, so the plan and the setup.
Oh, yeah.
You said that most of the people that we invest, kind of putting you on the spot, but you said most of the people that we interview have built portfolios. I don't know, I haven't seen too much about, have you managed to keep building a property portfolio, or, where does a broker that literally knows the entire cheat sheets of the system, that is no doubt very successful in business, there's probably a lot of money coming in there. What is Katie like? Have you put it into the PPR, or like what's your sort of view on property, or your personal portfolio? Like, what have you sort of been thinking? What's your strategy around that?
Yeah, I definitely have a property I love property. I'm very bullish on property. Yeah. Property for me, I've loved it forever. I have a mix of commercial and resi in property portfolio. Mm-hmm. PPOR, yes, I have one. But the goal really is I'll continue to accrue property. I don't really know that I'll stop doing that, to be honest, just because I think you get addicted, to be totally honest, as a property investor, and until you hit acquisition fatigue, like I said earlier. But all of the things I'm talking about is because it's also my lived experience of, now 17 years of buying property. I've been on both sides of the fence. I haven't had an extended period where I've not bought property and sold property, or, done...
What's the deal you've done the best on?
Oh, well, the first one went all right, but that was a fluke.
Yeah.
Deal that I've done the best on, I think there's two versions of that. One is sweat equity.
Yeah. And
that theoretically can look like it does really well, except you worked really hard for it.
This is true. You can't put a number on that either, which is dangerous.
100, absolutely. Other properties in other areas have just grown naturally because of great placement in there. But the worst is staying out of the market for construction.
Really?
Yes.
You shouldn't be telling me this. I've got a new series coming up of some construction. So why? What happened?
Well, I did it through COVID. That wasn't great timing on my part. But it wasn't the net result on the end, you could argue, was my most profitable, except it took a lot of years to then get there. So the opportunity cost in that was enormous. If I had injected...
What were you building? Your PPR?
Yeah, it's not now, but it was at the time.
Yeah. What are we talking, like, numbers wise? What's the context?
So we bought the land initially for under 300,000, like at the time. I know.
Nice up there in the Hunter edges, isn't
it's
it?
not like that now. No.
Yeah. Pre-COVID too.
Yes, yeah. It was pre-COVID. So we got an artificial run of COVID. Now, at the time, the industry hadn't shifted yet on build prices either. So I got in just before that. Now, all of those things, if that had executed in 6 to 9 months like a traditional build normally does, absolutely fine. That would have been a great uplift from artificial climb through COVID. However, that's not what happened. Yeah. And the time out of the market where I could have redeployed equity elsewhere was enormously costly. I could have done a lot more through that period instead of buying that property at that stage and staying out of the market. COVID, obviously, that's an anomaly. Build took forever. Build took 18 months to do.
For a house?
Yeah, just standard house. But even there was every drama you could hear rock, basics, COVID, all the things, all the horror stories. Yeah. I lived firsthand through that. But regardless of any of those things, the time out of the market, other markets moved considerably more through that period, and I'm just waiting for some frames. So it was the opportunity cost was the biggest issue, really, that on reflection, a different choice there. I the property portfolio probably now would have looked very different had I not done construction. Could have still bought something, but not stayed out of the market.
Okay. Well, you live in your own, unfortunately.
You do.
But if you profited a little bit from that anyway, it's it's a lot of people sort of went backwards. Some went forwards a lot, some went backwards. So in terms of the loan book and the loans that you've written, is there any really large ones or really memorable ones that stand out?
I think the things that stood out for me are really my very early ones, to be totally honest, from a client perspective.
Yeah.
I think when you're first coming into the industry as a lender, those first couple of relationships of people that you do their first investment property for, you do their first home for, those ones for me were very, very, very memorable. I really held those fairly dearly. Ironically, someone that I did one of their first investment properties for 12 years ago now works with me. Yeah. So you just build all of these relationships over that period of time that I think are just enormously valuable, that you continue to have, such great friendships with. So I think there's the early days ones really, really stick in my mind. I have a client, we have recently hit property number 10 for him, and he was just enormously excited over that. But to be honest, it was more his reaction to it. He just the genuine excitement to hit that number, and I really talk more to portfolio value, the number of properties. But for him, that was huge, and that was a really lovely celebration to have with him as well. So I think there's moments in there that it's so lovely to be on people's journeys of first home buyers, coming in and doing their first home, and then you do their investment property, and, then you do another owner-occupied property for them because they're building a family, and you knew them as a single person, and now you've met their partner, and now they're moving because they're having a baby. Yeah. Like all those things that I think brokers get to live the lives with these people is really, really lovely.
Yeah, perfect. It's true. You get to see that full life cycle, and then you get the kids in 18, 20 years, who knows. Well, look, Katie, I really appreciate your time. How we usually wrap up these sorts of interviews, conscious of almost at the hour mark, is I usually ask for two things. One is a quote you live your life by, and one is advice that you can leave our audience with. So it could be to the broker part of our audience, it could be to the investor part, it could be to everyone in general. But if you can give me in either order, quote you live your life by, and a bit of advice to leave us with.
Just do everything really strategically. Play out all of your next moves before you've made the first one. In every facet, first home buyer, investor, broker, make sure you've thought through everything after the fact before you've moved it all, and try and play that out as deeply as you possibly can. And then you've got enough information to make your first move. Quotes I live my life by. There are so many one-liners I have that I live my life by.
Pump them out, please. I'll clip a couple.
I love simplify to amplify. I think it's so key there to go, you don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. Just systems before scale. Follow the process. Enjoy the ordinary. The ordinary is really what accelerates the growth. There is no secret sauce to what that is. You just do the ordinary very, very, very well, and do it on repeat at scale and be excited about it, I think is something I really love. Failing forward, I think, is something I love repeating in my head every time you stuff up, because failing forward is such a great philosophy to go. Failing's not a bad thing at all. Failing's brilliant. Failing just gave you a bunch of learnings on how to do it right. And I think it's so true that failure isn't failing, quitting is. And that is then so motivating to go, that was great feedback. Let's pivot and do something differently. And within that falls into everything where you go, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. James Clear, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's so true. You really, really do. You can have the most ambitious goals, but if you don't have great systems in place that facilitate that for you and your team and your clients, and if you don't spend time behind the scenes working on that and you're constantly out spruiking and trying to build a brand and build a name and you don't have any of that in place and that comes together, you're not ready. Versus you stay behind the scenes for a little bit longer, get all of that right, build your systems, build your processes, do the boring stuff first, don't be showy, don't, ego gets in the way of that, get that down, then you're good to go. Systems before scale.
Systems before scale. Katie Thomas, appreciate you coming on the Everything Property podcast.
Thank you.
Enlightening me and our audience with wisdom, and congratulations again on your achievements so far. And it's incredible to hear a little bit more behind the scenes and behind the story. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining us, tracking it down to Sydney.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be following your journey.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it.